where not just women are in danger, but all marginalized people, where being uniquely different right now might truly be considered a crime. It seems as though we had all slipped into a false sense of comfort, that justice would prevail and that good would win in the end. Well, good did not win this election, but good will win in the end. So what today means is that we are far from the end. Today marks the beginning of our story. The revolution starts here. The fight for the right to be free, to be who we are, to be equal. Let's march together through this darkness, and with each step, know that we are not afraid. That we are not alone. That we will not back down. That there is power in our unity, and that no opposing force stands a chance in the face of true solidarity. And to our detractors that insist that this march will never add up to anything,
Boston Red here with Friday Java, a weekly magazine of political theory, polling, and commentary. It is part of the history called people that make up this fascinating journey. We are part of the Obama network. For that, we make no apologies. What we pledge to do is give you the facts on a bridge to history. What body politics is, the most up-to-date theories of political science and psephology. Stay tuned for this incredible ride. Boston Red, peace out.
Friday Java. On 9th of August 2019, Boston Red here in the Jerry Pippin broadcast booth. We have the people from the University of Virginia, as we normally do, and hopefully we'll get that report up on the workstation here. And some polling, various polling. We have some from, I believe, from Iowa, North Carolina, out of California. There's a Texas poll courtesy of Nate Silver's shop out of Tyler, Texas. A very interesting poll, and we'll go over it. But firstly, we'll start in Jackson, Mississippi. The ICE raids there in Jackson, Mississippi. This was the largest one to date, or one of the largest ones to date. Almost 700 people were apprehended by ICE and Homeland Security and various other actors on the scene. Of that number, over 300 were literally released. And the ICE people would have you believe that they released them on compassionate terms. That's not correct. They released them because they did not have a valid reason to keep them in custody. And the problem was these were poultry processing plants owned by the infamous Koch brothers, formerly of Wichita, Kansas, and now of Palm Beach, Florida, and Palm Springs in California. Known libertarians that have run for president have donated millions of dollars to conservative causes, and they're the ones behind the big legislative scheme. It is a cookie cutter program that they have been able to elect candidates to perform it. In other words, getting these business-friendly ideas into state legislatures, and have been very successful at it. It's interesting that these plants in these very, very small Mississippi towns that no doubt the displacement will affect the economies of those towns, because again, if you have a town of several hundred or perhaps even several thousand at most, you have a situation where you take out 200 or 300 of the productive workers there that earning incomes. The other local businesses are impacted in an adverse way, no doubt about that. So in other words, you're creating problems. You're not creating any kind of sustainable growth in the town. And of course the predatory poultry processing plants that pollute the waters, and you name it, the chicken type operations that they run are not the best. Very dangerous work, doesn't pay very much at all, and we'll see if any of the officials of these plants are actually prosecuted by the feds. And once again we visit this whole idea of people, the schools, secondary schools had started. Elementary school is in Mississippi, and I guess you get early there. They used to start later for cotton picking season, I read once, but I suppose now that's mechanized. They can start early in August, and it's used hot as hell in Mississippi, no doubt about that. But parents being seized by the government, and their children coming home from school, no parents, hopefully not latchkey types. They do have a key to get in the house. Some, young kids, 6, 7 years old, trying to figure out what is actually happening to them. And of course neighbors were helping out with the kids. The mayor of the largest city, the capital in Jackson, being a man of the people, the mayor there has organized and is working with various groups. Mayor Lumumba in Jackson there. His father was a mayor. His father died. This is the son. So he's showing his people's campaign. Jackson has a progressive government in the city of Jackson, which is the largest city in the state of Mississippi. It is the state capital there. Now the city of Jackson operates the city, but then they have the county, and of course they have the influence of the state government there also. So that's a situation that for the small towns around Jackson, it has just a catastrophe. It's a national catastrophe. What it shows is these so-called photo op hearing raids, and they'd been talking about some of these and said they had them planned for a year, which is no doubt a lie, but nonetheless they pull it off, and they turn out to be like the Keystone Cops. They can't shoot straight. As an interesting Bloomberg article, we'll get it up here if we can, talking about DJ Trump, his election possibilities, various disasters floating around there. The national security apparatus is in chaos. Dan Coates was forced out. He was the head there. And the acting director, she was forced out. And now they have some light admiral type named McGuire. I don't know if he's associated with the Molly McGuires or not. And hopefully not the parrot that went into the mine. But this is the kind of situation that is an external kind of situation that goes along with these types of administrations. You start to see this shortfall, and then these shortfalls when the Rutledge, I think his name was going to be the Director of National Intelligence. He was just a blowhard that lied on his basic resume, and was found out his name was withdrawn, and that has happened time and time again. So in other words, what you're seeing is in the process, the selection process, so-called on substantiated facts are there, or what they call fake facts. We call them unsubstantiated facts, is leaping into everything. And what that leads to is massive incompetence. The right has, since time immemorial, always specialized in the absence of facts. Because what happens there when there are no facts to support a quote-unquote rational line of information, then there has to be lies. And of course, lies. The problem with lies in this type of setup we have today, with social media out there, with Twitter, that's the favorite device of DJ Trump, the lies are exposed in minutes. And there's still this preoccupation with the reactionary fascistic types. Hitler was able to pull that off with the big lie. So they tell one lie after another lie, and they assume that people will believe them. And unfortunately for them, people do not believe them. Just because you tell someone that the sun has set doesn't mean it's sundown. People have to look at that. That's sort of like telling someone to be safe in an environment where 30 or more people were killed on a weekend in El Paso, Texas, and Dayton, Ohio, many wounded. How can you present that as somebody being safe? That's a war zone, and in a war zone, no one is safe. The government cannot assure a person, if it were a war zone, let me get this straight, that you could demilitarize the war zone and bring about some form of quote-unquote safety. But you can't demilitarize a war zone when you don't know where it is. So this is the big right-wing lie. The reason that these right-wingers tell people to be safe is to obstruct the real situation, that there is carnage around the corner. Evidently there was someone caught on Thursday in Springfield, Missouri, at another Walmart. He was armed, had some body type armor. A firefighter fortunately caught this character, and the law enforcement types were able to disarm him and arrest this clown. But again, it gets to the issue: would people have been quote-unquote safe in that Walmart? Hell no. They would not have been safe in that Walmart. They would have been shot because of the type of tools this young man had. When you have the types of guns as trying to get too many others in here, the person in Dayton, Ohio had, he had this cylinder type of a magazine that 100 rounds were in it, and once he was able to get in and start to he locked and loaded, and that was the end of the story right there. People were instantly killed, and also people were wounded. And as a public safety matter situation, that was a complete failure, period. So what this all boils around this whole law and order situation. There's some law, very little order, because the country's in disorder and chaos, and people are now beginning to understand that if they live in Springfield, Missouri, they live in Dayton, Ohio, El Paso, Texas, in California, in Pittsburgh, and wherever, but the Denver area there, where these massacres combine, where these massacres have occurred, they immediately know there is no safety. So no amount of talking about the law enforcement situation. You see that in the Jackson, Mississippi area. You had a so-called law enforcement situation there that was, as far as we know at press time, we'll use that term, roughly 50% of the people that were arrested are still in some form of detention. Now, what we don't know is there adequate legal representation there for these people, or they were forced in literally into hangars at a National Guard location outside of Jackson. They used misters there. It was not set up to have that many people in there to go through fingerprinting and what have you. Haphazard, period. The U.S. is a $18 to $21 trillion economy. definitely can do better than go running around willy-nilly playing Marshall Dillon, OK Corral, or whatever they are playing these days. And this is starting now to rub off. It's like our former producer O.T. Leo used to say on his free strikes. And DJ Trump and that administration is getting to that territory. He goes to El Paso, Texas, attacks the leadership there. That's something you never do because you're a guest. He attacks the leadership in Dayton, Ohio, and then he basically meets with first responders who are police types, assuming that he has an audience there, but there's some backers there, and then with their poor, disoriented, distressed, demoralized victims, but out of sight of the public, except for the motorcade went through and was booed. And then he said, well, we had a good reception. You can't have a good reception if there's video broadcasting on these TV channels and all over Twitter, etc., showing people booing you. I mean, you can only go so far with this PR, and the PR itself becomes a very unfortunate situation within itself. I was looking at the Clarendon Ledger. This is a USA Today newspaper, and if you listen to what I think it was Monday night, we talked about what has happened to it. It has been bought out, so we'll see fewer and fewer types there. 680 arrests and ICE raids at Mississippi plants. And they ask what the penalties are, period. And state can't locate some of the children. This is a continual theme here, that this disruption of family life used to be a sacred thing in this country, and politicians used to rally around so-called family values. Well, these are not family values, period, and we more and more we get to the conclusion that they are not. We have our friends from the University of Virginia here also. Let me just take a quick look here in Dayton, Ohio. This is old news here. This is the Dayton Daily News, and we was an older article there. And let's move on here a little bit. Just some of our polling here. And let me just see if we can find the people from the University of Virginia. I will do the Youngstown paper a little later there. I think we'll go to the polling and then we'll make an attempt to move back. We'll start out with the article here from Texas Opinion Survey in Tyler. Anyway, when you ask which candidate they believe did the best job of debate, regardless of personal support, 19% of those watched all or some or both chose Elizabeth Warren beat O'Rourke at 18%, Bernie at 15%, Joe Biden at 15%, Harris at 10%. Also got double digits, about 13% of Democrats and Democratic-leaning respondents said the debate changed their support for a candidate, while the event affirmed the support of 43 and 45% are still undecided. A lot of people undecided here, and of the 282 person panel of Democrats who watched all the debates in June and July, support for Medicare for all plans that eliminate private coverage increased 3%, while plans that would allow private coverage lost 6%, according to this. Hadn't seen that figure before. And Medicare for all is a general policy choice to having a neutral position. Results suggest that the ongoing debate amongst Democratic candidates about which plan to universal health care is the most viable is impacting the attitude of many Texas primary voters who have yet not settled on a path for support. The panel shifting attitude towards decriminalizing border crossings is a stickler. 9% of the panelists in June supported are neutral towards repealing the law that makes unauthorized crossings a crime, and moved to oppose the measure in a July survey. On the other hand, 33% of the panelists who in June opposed the repeal moved to supporting it. Democratic voters still want someone who can beat DJ Trump. DJ Trump's approval is down another point from the last survey in July. It now stands at 39%. That's of all registered voters in state of Texas. Disapproval at 53%. Head-to-head contest, President Trump is trailing Joe Biden -4, Bernie Sanders -4, Beto O'Rourke -6. Silent percentage of responders answered neither or other, not sure about that. Kamala Harris was a +4, Buttigieg was a +7 against a large percentage. So if you start looking at some of these people here, Trump versus Warren, Trump had 39, Warren had 37, and Trump versus Biden, Biden has 41, and head-to-head, and DJ Trump had 37. With Bernie Sanders, DJ Trump's at 38, Bernie is at 42. And with Kamala Harris, he's ahead by 4 points there, 39 to 35. And with Beto O'Rourke is at 43. DJ Trump at 37. Shows how things are going. Buttigieg is at 31. DJ Trump at 38. Senator Cornyn is at 36% approval rate with 30% disapproval. A sizable answer. Don't know. It changes 10% more there. On the issue, 55% registered voters support expanding of Medicare for all, 20% oppose it. And these are the crosstabs here. The methodology was University of Texas at Tyler was conducted a survey sampling internation panel of registered voters opting to take the survey. This is known as Aristotle. The online panel gathered 1,261 registered voters, 18 or older. The data were weighted to be representative of Texas adults, and the parameters were derived from the 2016 current population survey voting and registration tabs. The sampling in the poll is a plus a negative 2.8%, something that you'd want to know about this poll. And let's see what else we got. Well, I'll do Bloomberg last, but just kind of crossing some of these polls. Oh, this is okay. This is the same one. Never mind there. Let's go to Real Clear here and see if we can pull up these polls. So we'll have them all here in one basket, so to speak. Okay. The Monmouth poll, people, this is Iowa. We'll get to it in just a minute here. Out of Long Branch, New Jersey, they have Biden at 28, Warren at 19, Sanders at 11, and Bernie at 9, Buttigieg at 8, Amy Klobuchar's at 3 here, Sears at 3 also, and Senator Booker at 1, and so forth and so on. He's up by 9 there. In the state of California, Biden is up by 4, Kamala Harris, he's at 25. She's at 17. Liz Warren is at 21. Bernie is at 18. Buttigieg is at 6 in that contest. In North Carolina, Biden is way ahead at 21%, better known. And then comes Bernie at 15. And Liz Warren. They are sort of clustered together. They have 3-point difference there. Harris at 8. Buttigieg at 5. And so forth and so on. In Pennsylvania, Franklin Marshall poll, very close in Pennsylvania, a controlled state. Biden's home state, he's at 28. Liz Warren's at 21. Bernie's at 12. Harris is at 8. Buttigieg at 6. Senator Booker at 2. There. And the approval rating, this is incidentally on Thursday, approval rating at this right-wing poll for the Hill is 45%, 47 to Rasmussen. The Morning Consult, which is Politico, has old DJ Trump at 41, disapproval at 55. Wrong tracks ahead, by 26 points. And on Wednesday, I think we reported this. This is YouGov, has Biden up by 7 at 25, Bernie at 13, Liz Warren 18, Harris at 8, Buttigieg at 7, Beto at 2, there, Publisher at 1, and the approval rating there is 45. These numbers are going to go up, and around. They're not going to stay in one particular location. Generic ballot, very important for the people at the University of Virginia. Democrats up by 10 in that ballot, 48 to 38. That thing has been fluctuating up and down. And that is our polling there. Let's take the Thermometer poll. Let's take a little look at it now. This is Iowa. Long Branch, New Jersey there. Patrick Murray, as usual, is the head of the poll there. He can be found Poster Patrick, and you can call him, etc. Biden holds lead. Warren on the chase, as they say, for former Vice President. Biden maintains a lead in Hawkeye State, followed by Liz Warren, who is hot on his heels, while Bernie Sanders has slipped down the leaderboard. This is the second poll likely of 2020 Democrats in Iowa. The poll also shows the majority of likely caucus goers want a public option rather than Medicare for all. That may be the situation that is causing Bernie some problems in Iowa. Most voters feel only a few candidates have a chance in the poll, and let's see, Biden has 27% in that was in April, and basically Warren is now closing the gap at 19%, up from 7% 4 months ago. Support for Bernie has gone the other direction, now at 9 compared with 16 in Iowa. Kamala Harris is at 11%, up from 7. Buttigieg has 8, similar to 9, about the same there. Amy Klobuchar has 3%. We expect her numbers to go up. It'll be interesting to see where Bernie and his organization goes. The race is much tighter amongst those who plan to attend traditional caucus events, with 26% supporting Biden, 20% backing Warren, followed by Harris, and 9% for Bernie. According to Patrick Murray, he's directly independent Monmouth University Polling Institute. He added, on the other hand, the importance of Iowa really is about momentum more than about delegates. If the Iowa Democratic Party reports an initial preference count on caucus night, it may make the front runner look more formidable if there is an overwhelming turnout in the virtual caucuses. Now, this is something new, and we'll be talking about it. The party does not report those results right away. Then the caucus night media coverage might focus on someone who does not fare as well in the turnout, but did a better job organizing delegates and win at key caucus sites. Now, that's going to be very interesting. You'll hear more and more about that. Biden maintains stable level of support he had in April. Favorable ratings have slipped a little bit. He's still strong, 73% favorable ratings. He has been overtaken by Warren. Now, she is 76. Very interesting. And Bernie is at, 58. This is a slug going on here. And some of the others, Senator Booker is at 56 and 16 there. Amy Klobuchar is at 50. She's got to get those numbers up. And 17. Julian Castro is at 47, just because he's not known very well. That is what the situation is. Bernie Sanders at his 58. Liz Warren has better favorables than Joe Biden. And this is going to be very interesting there, because she is a very formal organization in Iowa, period. Beating Trump gets 15%, immigration 14%, education at low 7, taxes at 7, jobs at 7, income inequality at 6, civil rights not very high, they're only 6% there, foreign policy 5, guns. Healthcare went from 58 to 44. That's one of the reasons you see Bernie slipping in Iowa. On the health care issue, majority 56% of the likely caucus go and say they prefer to allow people to opt into Medicare, while 21% say they want Medicare for all. When asked which candidate for president comes closest to their views, Biden at 28, Liz Warren at 20, Bernie Sanders at 20 lead the pack. Many voters remain confused on the single most domestic issue. Medicare for all crowd have their champions, but the vast majority of voters want a public option. Last month's debate did not appear to have clarified yet. That is a confusing issue and has been confusing for the American people. And the candidates need to rework that. I think Bernie does a very good job of it. This poll was conducted August 1st through the 4th with 401 voters who are likely to attend Democratic caucus, small one there, and has a margin of error of 4.9 to a note. Virtual caucus, likely virtual caucuses, including voters who would probably not attend in-person caucus, as well as those who would normally be considered likely caucus goers, but might opt for the virtual caucus this time. It's unclear how many voters will ultimately choose the virtual option. The group currently represents 20% of all. That's fairly high. The Iowa Democratic Party says it will report the voters' preference totals in 2020, whereas they only report state delegate equivalents in the past. So it is going to be a different situation, and we'll have to keep that in mind as we move along here. Now let me just skip over here and do the baseball scores, then we'll take a break and go to, hopefully we'll do the baseball scores, and we'll go to the people at the University of Virginia. Looking at our time here, time-wise. Incidentally, find my cheap sheet here on the English Premier League and where it is out, evidently they're beginning their championships as the English Premier League. Anyway, nonetheless, let's start the scores out while we can. The White Sox were at the Phillies in Philadelphia. Sox 10-5 over the Phillies. The Blue Jays were in Camden Yard. There were no rats there. 6-5 the score, Orioles there. And the Angels of Los Angeles were in Cleveland. Cleveland 6-2. The Rays were at the Marlins were at the Rays. Battle of Florida there, Rays 7-2 in that contest. In 10, Cincy, the Reds were in Atlanta, 6-4. Atlanta lost there. I've been losing a few games lately. The Mets 13-2 over the Pirates in Pittsburgh. The Mariners and Astros in Houston. Astros 3-1. The Royals were in the Twin Cities. Twins shut the Royals out 3-0. And the Brewers were at the Cubbies. Cubbies won the game again, 7-2. Jason Davis drove in 3 runs. Mr. Darvish was the pitcher there. They had a sweep. Very unusual for the Cubs to sweep the Brewers. Tigers were at the Rangers in Texas. Texas 9-4. The Giants were in the Mile High City. The Rockies 6-2 over the Giants. And the Athletics in Oakland beat the Cardinals 4-2. Pitched 5 innings to get the win in his Oakland debut. I guess things to come. Nonetheless, the Dodgers were working overtime on the Padres. They were in Los Angeles. The Dodgers were 11-10. The Dodgers had 11 hits, 1 error. And the Padres 12 hits, 1 error. The Diamondbacks and Nationals, they were in the D-backs in Arizona. D-backs 7-5. And finally, the Sox were in New York. Yankees 7-4 there. And again, they swept the Sox. 4-game sweep, pounded Mr. Price there. David Price in 4-7. A situation there from... Sorry about that. I gave you the wrong thing here. Ha! Something is not right here. That was Sunday scores. Blank that out. We should have had, not sure why that occurred. Sometimes things do occur. We'll tomorrow night. Let's take a break here. This is WBRN radio, and hold on 1 second here. Nonetheless, we now have the article up here. This is the senior columnist again, Dr. Amowitz of the Emory University here, writing on the 8th of August, 2019, as we normally do. We honor Heber Higher. And nonetheless, his key points here, the Special Counsel Mueller recently testified as a reminder that Russia attempted to influence the outcome of the 2016 election and very well may have tried to do so again in 2020. And the question he asked, did the Russian interference affect the 2016 election result? This begs the question, is there any evidence that Russian interference may have impacted the results in key states? The following analysis suggests that the 2016 results could be explained almost entirely based on political and demographic characteristics of those states. So from that standpoint, the answer is no, and I agree with Professor there, Amowitz. The special counsel testified before the House Judiciary and Intelligence Committee. The Mueller report made it very clear that the Russian government made a major effort to help DJ Trump win in 2016 presidential election. What the report did not determine, however, was whether that effort was successful. In this article, I tried to answer the question by examining whether there was any indication from the 2016 results that Russian interference efforts may have played a key role in the outcome. One such indication would be if Trump did better in key swing states and a range of demographic, partisan, historic factors would have indicated. We know from the Mueller report that the campaign manager, Paul Melliford, briefed a longtime associate who the FBI believed had ties with Russian intelligence. This, according to Manafort's deputy, Rick Gates, discussing decisive battleground states such as Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. He also directed Gates to share internal polling data which may have influenced Russian operatives. In order to address the question whether Russia's interference effectively worked, I would conduct a multiple regression analysis of the election results at the state level. The dependent variable in the analysis was Trump's margin. My independent variable was the 2012 Willard Romney margin. To control for traditional state partisanship, state ideology measured by the Gallup poll, percentage of conservatives minus the percentage of liberals, the percentage of state populations made up of Europeans without college degrees, and estimate to turnout available voters in the state's unemployment rate in November of 2016 to measure economic conditions, the number of Trump campaign rallies, kind of interesting here, as to the number of Hillary Clinton rallies in the state, a dummy variable for the state of Utah to control a large vote share won by the independent conservative Mormon candidate Evan McMullen. And finally, the dummy ballot variables, for swing states. The swing states include Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Iowa, Minnesota, Nevada, New Hampshire, Ohio, and Virginia, in addition to Pennsylvania, and so forth and so on. And he has the model here, and the unstandardized coefficient won't go into that. And he has a nice scatter plot here, actual Trump margins predicted by Trump margins in the state, and the regression equation provided to be extremely successful in predicting election results, explaining a remarkable 98% of the variance in the Trump margin there. After controlling traditional state partisanships, ideologies, the size of non-European, he used white, I use European, populations in a state. And if we look at predicting actual margins in key swing states. Michigan, the predicted margin 1.2 tenths, and it was actually 2 tenths in the state of Michigan. In the state of Pennsylvania, the predicted margin was 2.6%, and it was 0.7% there. That's a negative 1.9. And in Wisconsin, the predicted margin was 3.4, and it was 0.8 tenths, which compares the actual and predicted results in 3 swing states that ultimately decided the outcome of the election: Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Which is most striking about the data is that DJ Trump actually slightly underperformed the model's prediction in all 3 states. He did about 1 point worse than predicted in Michigan, 2 points worse in Pennsylvania, and 3 points in Wisconsin. There is no evidence here that Russian interference, to the extent it occurred, did anything to help DJ Trump. I find no evidence that Russia attempted to target voters in key swing states that had any effect on the outcome. Period. And there's plenty of grounds for real concern here. Indeed, the electoral college system used to select presidents almost invites efforts to interfere in elections, whereas trying to affect the national popular vote result would probably be prohibitively expensive. Efforts to target a few swing states would be much more costly effective. Professor Amowitz is the Albin Bartley Professor of Political Science at Emory University and a senior columnist with the Crystal Ball. I will put this on. And the Great Alignment, the Race Party Transformation, and the Rise of DJ Trump. I've read the book, got it on the shelf now, and refer back to it. We'll put this out here. And we want you really to look at this, particularly, let me just go with one thing here, how he actually underperformed. This is about how our Ouija board model came out there. Michigan, 1.2%, that was predicted. 0.2%, he performed 0.2%. And in Pennsylvania, they actually predicted he would get 2.6, and he got 0.7. So in other words, the polls were moving against him. And in Wisconsin, 3.4, and didn't happen for DJ there. 0.8 is what he got. And let me just see if gather here. If we, I was just looking now, standard coefficient, standardized coefficient. Okay. Well, actually, in Wisconsin, unemployment had improved there under Boss Walker, and basically because of the programs of President Barack Obama. And Pennsylvania had also improved. So in other words, the takeaway there is that in actuality, the unemployment figures in those states had improved. Now, granted, Wisconsin has a large European working class there in the state of Wisconsin, also in Pennsylvania. But those are also states that were carried by Barack Obama. The regression equation proving to be extremely successful, predicting a remarkable 98% variance in his margins there, and several of independent variables with very powerful effects, including what Will Romney was able to do, state ideology, percentage of non-college Europeans in each state. No doubt about that, and Data Table 1 shows that, well, anyway, McMillan, that's a different situation out in Utah there. So we look at this again, the source there, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. Hillary Rodham Clinton didn't campaign in Wisconsin. And in Michigan, she did very little campaigning. She did spend time in Pennsylvania, but the African American population in Philadelphia underperformed there. So he did about 1% worse than predicted, no doubt, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania. It was actually the difference there was a negative 1.9% there. So he was in single digits, 0.2% in Michigan. That is, so basically you had about 60 to 80,000 votes in those 3 states out of millions of votes there. A higher turnout in Milwaukee with African Americans, followed by O.J. Simpson. Hillary Clinton would have won that state. And in Michigan, lower turnout there amongst African Americans. Now we also have to say that in Michigan, under Gateway Snyder, a lot of voter suppression there. Voter suppression was more effective in Michigan, in Pennsylvania. He's all in control of Republican legislatures. And Boss Walker, of course, in Wisconsin. So the actual 8 temps, 7 temps, 8 temps in Wisconsin, 7 temps there. Voter suppression. And as Malcolm X said, in Milwaukee and Pennsylvania, the voter suppression, I guess a little thing on that, in those states. But on top of that, the African American didn't have anything to vote for there, period. But Michigan was very, very close, 2 temps there. So the winnable states, actually we look at those, all these states that could have been winnable with a few thousand more votes the other way, and bye-bye DJ Trump. There would have been no president. The takeaway from this is actually organize, and organize. And you can't discount what happened in these states. Some of these people, even these European working class types, they voted for Barack Obama because they seen hope and change, and they did get hope and change. And that's something to always remember. We tell young organizers that when there are 2 ways that voters go. When economic times are really bad, they make decisions, as they did in 2008 with the late old man McCain, and they decided to retain Barack Obama in 2012 because Barack Obama out-organized and defined Willard Romney. Now, in 2016, it was different. You had the precursor. You had a candidate that was well-known in DJ Trump. You had the corporate media that had slanted the campaign to DJ Trump. So Hillary Clinton didn't get very much TV. And the TV she got was mostly negative. So that reinforced some of the voters, that independent voters, more moderate voters there, either didn't vote or whatever the story perhaps was. And then the mistreatment of Bernie Sanders, all these things rolled into one. And then, of course, you had the Hillary server, which was misdirected in its entirety. That, no doubt, cost votes. But some of those votes were recapped. That's why it was recouped, I should say. That's why it was so close in some of these states. And perhaps had she made a few appearances in Wisconsin, she would have been able to pull that out. That was 8 temps of vote there, and 7 temps in Pennsylvania, and just 2 temps in Michigan. She probably would have won. Michigan could have won Wisconsin. Higher turnout in Philadelphia. Because in Southwest, outside of Pittsburgh, Southwest Pennsylvania, those type of Trump types showed up and were out there. There's no doubt about that. And they just didn't get the vote that they normally would. Now, in states like Ohio, Barack Obama won Ohio, and Iowa. Now, Iowa, the right-wing forces had taken it over. The Democratic Party in Iowa is not very well organized, and that's what makes a difference. You're going to see a lot of difference there with Liz Warren. She's very organized there. Bernie has a good organization in Iowa also. And this whole issue of Medicare for all versus the public option is a little bit confusing for some of the people. But if you have Medicare for all, you have the public option, basically speaking there. Now, where does this address health care? Well, with Medicare for all, you have access, and you also, and it's phased in over 4 years, and at the same time, you have a situation whereby prescriptions, co-pays, office visits, all that would be incorporated. Now, yes, on the front side, you would have upfront costs, but over the years, as with Affordable Care Act and Obamacare, as the great Jerry Pippen said, people will like it, and at the same time, costs will go down because the government will be able to buy in bulk. That's the reason there's a lot of confusion out there, and Senator Sanders has had a lot of negative press because basically the core Democratic Party, those are the same people that betrayed us on the public option. That is something to look at. Nonetheless, we'll see you on the week that was tomorrow night and on the Monday morning quarterback on this side of the political channel. And on the financial side, numbers man, this week in economics, we'll have it, and we'll talk about the economy. We'll have some things from the HSC market organization, the PCIs. We'll be looking at some of the emerging economies. We'll look also to the UK, and we'll look at where Brexit is under Johnson, and at the same time where China is, the yuan, renminbi, or what do you want to call it, is basically at 7 plus. 7 is the neutral thing, 7 to a dollar, etc. It has been moving around some, and at the same time we'll talk about these central banks that are cutting interest rates. Some have cut them several times. We used to call it prompt priming. It's classic Keynesian, whether it's neo-Keynesian or not. And we'll look at the modern economic theory. That is a brainchild of one Stacy Kenton. Formerly, she was at university in Kansas City, but now she's at Stony Brook. So she's talking about that, and basically that theory, where you see it, is the Trump $1.2 trillion tax cut. In other words, you pay for it in the future. So it becomes more or less revenue neutral at this time. And our continual theme is, and every projection I've looked at, whether it be from IMF, etc., the outline years, 2020, 2021, 2023, GDP worldwide will be, and boy, we really hit there, will be lower than it is. It'll be in the twos, unless there's, an outliner. But basically speaking, it'll be around 2.5, 2.3, etc. So you're not going to have the kind of growth that was artificially created by the tax cut in the U.S. and also by the Obama years and the policies that Barack Obama's economic team put forward, and what happened in the world. It was out there. But you have Brexit in the UK is a big problem there. The Chinese situation will clear itself up. Those tariffs there, some people will play them. That will actually be, in the long term, not the short term, good for the Chinese economy. It will become much more self-sufficient because they had the wherewithal to do it. Now, some other economies, there will be some problems there. I don't want to get too much into the numbers man report. I thought we'd throw that in. And we have also on the channel the technical program, the open source report. We looked at Capital One and what happened there, the breach there, because of legacy software, etc. And we'll continue to look around. We also have an episode, Al Franken, A Case of Injustice. Invite you to look at that also. Have a good weekend, everyone. We'll talk to you on episode The Week That Was. We're on the 9th of August, 2019. Good day.